What's up, what's going on, legends? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into Modern Warfare Zombies, and today I want to talk to you guys about the stash. Now, we all know the stash is extremely limited, only giving us up to 10 slots to hold the items that we want for future runs. But in this video specifically, I want to go ahead and go through each of the different items that we can hold in our stash and decide which ones are the most important and how you guys should go about building your stash, considering, like we said, you only have the ability to hold 10 items. Now, there are quite a few items in Modern Warfare Zombies that can be very beneficial to future runs. However, some of them are going to be a lot more rare to come by, whether it's through rewards, looting, or just in general. So these are the ones you guys are going to particularly want to hold on to. Now, first, let's go ahead and start with all of the ones that are going to be super easy to get a hold of. So maybe you guys aren't going to want to keep them in your stash. Now, of course, it all depends on what your stash looks like. More importantly, this is going to be for those of you that are constantly working with a full stash, not so much those of you that are working with the open stash base, as at that point, any item is going to be something that can be beneficial to your next run. So let's go ahead and start with the perks. Now, each and every one of the perks does give you some sort of benefit when going into a run. However, you're not going to want to waste your stash space with these, as the simple answer is each of these will only cost you 2,000 essence and can be acquired going over to the proper Perk-a-Cola machine and actually grabbing it, or heading over to the Wonder Fizz, where you will be able to select the perk that you would like, grabbing it for the 2,000 essence. So essentially, you guys are going to be able to get any and every perk that you would want just by purchasing them for the simple cost of 2,000, and you also have a pretty good chance by completing contracts to get these as a reward. Now, of course, you are banking a bit on RNG, but basically you do have a pretty good chance when opening up a reward rift that you guys will get one of the perks, or multiple perks even, being able to equip them or even stash them in your backpack for your next run. Now, being that these perks are so easy to come by, again, using the 2,000 essence in order to purchase them or coming across them as rewards along the way. So by no means do I think you guys should waste any stash space, unless, of course, again, you guys have the space available on any of the perks for a future run. If you guys are desperate to go in with some extra perks and you guys have a large enough backpack, of course, you guys can go ahead and craft some before actually going into a run, which would start your cooldown period. And then obviously at some point, once the cooldown period's done, you guys would be able to pop these again. But under no means do I think you guys need to go out of your way to pop any of these perks and put them into your stash, holding onto them for future runs, because it's just going to lead to wasted space in the stash, as there is much better items to go after. Now let's go ahead and dive into the Ethereum crystals. Now, of course, we have our raw, which packs us to level 1. We have our refined, which pack-a-punch us to level 2, and we have our flawless, which pack-a-punches us to level 3. Now, pack-a-punch always gives us some sort of value going in, because if you have a pack-a-punch level 1, you'll be able to go through the tier 1 contracts quicker. If you have pack-a-punch level 2, you might even be able to go directly into the tier 2 zone, taking on the contracts in that zone, giving yourself a little bit more essence as a reward. And if you guys are extremely lucky to come across the flawless ones, or you choose to craft it, you guys can even go in with a pack-a-punch level 3, pretty much being extremely overpowered for whatever you guys want to get yourself into, except for some of the endgame content. Now, although all of these crystals can provide you some sort of benefit going into your next run, I still don't think these fall under valuable enough to keep in the stash, unless, of course, again, you guys do have empty stash spots available. Then, of course, putting anything into those spots would become valuable for your later run. But the main reason for me choosing to not put pack-a-punch crystals into my stash is because it's so easy to go ahead, completing contracts, getting a hold of the essence that you need. Then you guys can go ahead and open up the reward rift, where it is possible that you guys could get a raw Ethereum crystal, getting pack-a-punch level 1 for free, saving you the 5,000 essence. And even sometimes it's also possible to get pack-a-punch level 2, where not only would you be able to skip pack-a-punch level 1, you would also be able to go to pack-a-punch level 2, saving you that 15,000 essence in that specific run. Now, in that case, let's say you got pack-a-punch level 2, you would then be able to use the essence that you saved to go and buy all the other perks. So again, no reason to have the perks stashed in your stash. Now, this is the same reason why you guys aren't going to want to use the pack-a-punch crystals, as there is always a potential completing contracts has the ability to give you Ethereum crystal, especially the raw ones, as I wouldn't say they're overall extremely rare, and even in some cases, you might even end up with 4 or 5 of them in a single run completing contracts. Now, although the pack-a-punch level 2 crystal is a little bit more rare, I do think because you can come across the pack-a-punch level 1 crystal so commonly, it doesn't really give you a lot of reason to stash pack-a-punch crystals into your stash coming in with them, because you will be able to use essence overall to be able to get to those pack-a-punch levels. So although it is useful to have a pack-a-punch level 2 or even a pack-a-punch level 3 crystal, you can realistically go in, do contracts, have a possibility of getting a reward that will allow you to skip a pack-a-punch level, saving you then the essence, but realistically you can just farm up the essence that you need to go hit these pack-a-punch levels. So because it is so easy to hit up the pack-a-punch with the amount of essence that you need required, and it is also possible that you can get a reward including one of the pack-a-punch crystals, I'm just going to say don't put these in your stash or bother having them, and anytime you guys have the ability to craft them and need to use them in your next run, that's the recommendation that I would have. Now, next we have the Wonder Weapon. Now, the Wonder Weapons could be a great option if there's a specific one that you want to take into a run, putting that into your stash for later, as they do have 2-day cooldowns. However, again, these are not something that you want to put in your stash, as they will take up valuable slots, as again, you guys can choose to craft them whenever you do want them to go into the run. There is, however, the cooldown period, but on top of that, you guys do have the possibility of going going in and actually getting a wonder weapon as a reward, or even saving up enough essence to hit the mystery box multiple times where you guys will have a good possibility of getting one out of that as well. Realistically, I don't think any of the wonder weapons are so overpowered or so great that you absolutely have to have them, except for the VR11 can be pretty cool. You guys won't actually be able to craft that and place that into your stash, so unless you guys already have one and exfil with it, there's no reason why you guys would have that in your stash anyway. But outside of that, I don't think the Wonder Waft, the Ray Gun, or even the Scorcher is an item that you necessarily have to have, and is something that you should craft and keep in your stash. Again, we are going to get to the items that are most important, but I definitely don't think that wonder weapons are something that you should keep in your stash, unless of course you guys have that space available. Now next we have the Dog Bone. Now although this does sound tempting and it sounds extremely useful to have, I don't think the Dog Bone is all that great. Main reason is it is easily accessible by getting chunks of flesh, going over to a doghouse and using the chunks of flesh to getting a dog, instead of just using a dog bone which takes up a slot to then get the dog instantly. Basically, you guys do have the ability to farm chunks of flesh by going over to an exfil, pretty much just calling it in, farming the zombies until you have the chunks of flesh that you need. You'll need 1 for the tier 1 zone, you'll need 2 for the tier 2 zone, and you'll need 3 for the tier 3 zone. You'll head over to the according zone, hit up a doghouse, throw them in there. You'll get the exact same effect as you will from using a dog bone. So with that being said, although going in with the dog bone can be cool, giving you guys a hellhound or dog off the rip, I don't think it's so overpowered or so usable that you guys have to keep these in your stash. So my recommendation would be, just like the other items before, would be to just craft this whenever you guys want to go in with it and use it. Outside of that, just leave it uncrafted. Now let's dive into the juicy stuff, the stuff that you should absolutely keep in your stash because it is so much harder to get. Now the first thing we're going to dive into is going to be the epic and legendary Aether Tools. Now obviously the legendary are significantly more rare than the epic, but even the epics can be hard to come by, and even if you complete tons of contracts no matter the zone, it can be pretty rare for you to come across one of these. So if you guys don't already have a bunch of legendary tools already available inside of your stash, that would be the time when I would say go ahead and stash as many of the epic tools as you can. That way going into the match, you guys would have the possibility of starting with an epic or legendary tool, because there is no way to upgrade the rarity once you guys get into the match except for finding another Aether tool of a higher rarity. The green and blue, which are the uncommon and rare rarities, are extremely easy to come across from completing the contracts and getting them as a reward, or even finding the harvester orbs flying around the map where you will be able to destroy them, and then as a reward you might get a blue or green wrench. So the green and blue wrenches won't do a lot of good keeping them in your stash unless of course you don't have any other ones available. So I'm going to recommend anytime you guys get purple or you guys have legendaries available, put those into your stash, because those will be super beneficial later, as unlike some of the items we said that we shouldn't keep in our stash, you guys won't be able to go and use any amount of essence no matter how many contracts you guys complete in order to upgrade the rarity. Now I know some of you guys might argue, why not go and get a purple or higher rarity weapon off the wall? Now that's definitely not as good as having a purple or legendary wrench available, because at that point you guys could infill with whatever loadout weapon you would like, equip it with whatever attachments you would like, and still be able to get the rarity that you would like. So by far the most useful thing that you can keep in your stash, in my opinion, would be the legendary Aether tool, and obviously if you guys don't have those available, but side by side with that would be the purple or epic tool, just because they are so rare as well. Now outside the rarity of the wrenches, I think the other thing that comes across with these is the amount of damage output that you can get by adding these to a weapon. Even though you can go ahead and pack a punch, which does give you a slight boost in damage, by having the legendary or epic Aether tool, you'll get a significant boost in damage before you even go and pack a punch to level 1. But definitely think that they are much more valuable than any of the pack a punch crystals, because you won't be able to use essence to upgrade this at any point, and going in with a purple or legendary tool ahead of time will allow you to do damage quicker, allowing you to complete contracts quicker, gaining more essence, being able to go over and pack a punch your weapon. Now out of the 10 slots given, I recommend at least 5 or so given to Aether tools of epic or legendary rarity. That way you guys are always prepared, no matter what weapon you guys choose, to go in and do harder content whenever you guys are prepared to do so. Now this next item is probably equally as important as having legendary Aether tools in your stash, and it's going to be the golden armor plate. If you guys aren't familiar with this, you guys do get the schematic by going into the Elder Sigil version of the Dark Aether and completing the contracts there, which will allot you the 3 new schematics from that region, which does include that golden armor plate that we were talking about, the Aether blade case, and of course the dog bone. So you guys will be able to go to these areas to unlock those schematics, and the golden armor specifically does regenerate armor plates over time, so you guys won't even have to have plates in your inventory, and after like 7 seconds or so, 1 plate will actually fill up. You guys continue to not take damage. You guys would go up to 2 plates after X amount of time goes by again, and it continues to do so. Even if you take damage after X amount of time goes by, it regenerates a plate. By far, one of the best things in the game, besides outputting more damage, the golden armor plate will definitely keep you alive, especially in the harder content. Depending on what kind of squad size you guys are working with will determine how important this golden armor plate is. And obviously, if you guys are going into the Dark Aether or trying to take on the Red Worm boss, it will be significantly more important. In my opinion, this is tied with the legendary Aether tool as far as importance. If not, it's definitely in second place. So alongside having like 5 or so tools available to you in your stash, I definitely recommend having at least 3 of these. You guys could even go as far as having half golden armor and half legendary tools if you guys are at that point in your stash, and you guys would be set up for pretty much any runs in the future. But ideally, I definitely definitely recommend, if you guys have the ability to, at least keep 3 of these in your stash and up to 5. Next, let's talk about the Aether Blade case. Now, I think it's exceptional to keep at least 1 of these in your stash at any given time, and maybe even allowing the one to be crafted at any given time, as it's one of the most useful things to use as a solo, as it just causes so much damage output to groups of zombies. Especially in those harder tier zones where you guys are having a much harder time taking out the zombies, having something like the Aether Blade available, especially when you're playing solo, can be a nice little advantage. So keeping one of these in your stash could possibly be a very good option for you if you guys would prefer to have one of these available, as opposed to maybe like a 4th golden armor plate. Now, the last item that I recommend you guys keep in your stash, or at least keep one of, is going to be the Elder Sigil. You guys get this by completing the regular sigils, going into the Dark Aether and completing contracts. And the Elder Sigil will give you 1 entry into the most difficult version of the Dark Aether currently, but I think it is beneficial to keep one of these in your stash. That way, if you guys do run out of golden armor plates or Aether Blade cases, you guys do have a chance to go into the Elder Sigil, go ahead into the Dark Aether, and have an opportunity to get some of these as a reward. There is always a possibility, if you guys do go into the Dark Aether and complete contracts, you guys might get golden armor plates, Aether Blades, or obviously Elder Sigils. Then you guys would be able to exfil keeping these items into your stash. Across the board, I think it only makes sense to keep the items that are the most difficult to come by. And honestly, in my opinion, the epic tools and the legendary tools are so few and far between. You're going to want to have those available anytime you're going to take on hard content. The golden armor plate's just going to be so beneficial to keep you alive. The Aether Blade can be super useful if you're running solo, and obviously having access to an Elder Sigil to increase your chances of getting some of these as rewards. Essentially, at all times, I try to keep all of these in my stash. Again, maybe 5 tools, 3 armor plates, then maybe an Aether Blade case and an Elder Sigil. That way, at all times, I have a good looking set of 10 items in my stash. Then whenever other items become available, I can honestly craft them when I need them, or just put them into my backpack, holding onto them for future runs. So that's going to wrap things up for today's video. Hopefully this clears things up and what you guys should actually keep inside your stash, and what is the most important items for going into future runs in Modern Warfare Zombies. Thank you guys for all the support in today's video, all the support in the channel. I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Peace.